a tutorial on how to animate like TonyVToons, and this is a character I created from just kind of like from one of his screenshots. So I'm going to make a copy of that, and I'm going to show you how we make it, or how you would make a copy, or how you draw it over or trace. And right now I'm going to use a circle, and I'm going to line it up somewhat. And I'll go to select into path, and that creates a path. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this path head px. Oops. This represents how thick the line is going to be. And we're going to go to the path tool again. I'm going to zoom in here and click here, 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 and here, making sure that we don't click over on this line here because it would select it. I'm going to do a control and a left mouse button to get this over here. And do that the same here. This, we're not trying to do it exact. I mean, it's just rough. I'm going to move this guy down here so it overlaps. And get rid of our select. And then we're going to come over here and do a new layer group. And under that layer, we're going to do a new layer and another new layer. And this is basically our lines layer, and I'm going to call that lines, and I can just call this one color. And I will not do this from now on, but everything will have its own lines and color layer. So what I'm going to do is stroke the path, and I'm going to make it 10, and 10's fine, so I'm going to stroke that path, and when I get rid of that, you see that we've actually got that there. So now I'm going to go back. Well, oh, we put it on the wrong layer. So what we can do is do a Control A, Control X, and get rid of it, go back to our lines layer, and then restroke the path, and there we go. Now we can use the U key, area select, and we can increase that select by the grow, and we're going to bump that up to 3. And then we're going to pick our color, and we're going to do Shift B, and then we're going to go down to our color layer, and we're going to paint that in. We're going to go back up to our lines layer and do the U, and select again, and grow that again by 3, and pick our color, and come down to here, do Control B, and there we go. And that's what we want. Now we're going to get rid of that so we can see our eyes, and we're going to come in here, and we're going to, oops, this is what we want, that. And we're going to use our two path again, and then we're going to duplicate this one, and we're going to go into our path tool, and we're going to move this path over to here. Then we're going to make these two paths visible, and then we're going to merge visible paths to 1, and we're going to call this eyes and say 5 pixels. That's what we're going to do. Now we're going to come over here and create a new layer group. We're going to create 2 new layer groups. Oops, didn't want that one. And in this we're going to create 1 layer, and in this one we're going to create 2 layers. And in this one here we're going to do the eyes. So we're going to get the path tool, we're going to stroke the path, and we're going to make that 5. Now that probably didn't completely work because of this here. We got the wrong color because we've got the selection going, so we're going to get rid of the selection. We're going to do Control A, Control X to get rid of that area there. We're going to go back to our black and white, restroke the path, and you can see it stroked to both there. I can see we've got a bit of a problem here, but that's not a big deal. I'm not going to worry about that. So we've got our line layer. We're going to use the U key, and we're going to select both. I did a Shift, left mouse button click to do the second select, and I'm going to go select, and I'm going to grow, and I'm just going to grow that 2. And then I'm going to go down to this layer and do Shift B, and I'm going to fill them in, and if I put the background in, you can see we've got our eyes. Now up here what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some blinking, so I'll go back to our path tool, and I'm going to click the left mouse button, and now I'm going to do Shift left mouse button to do a new path in the same path, and then I'm going to do Control and left mouse button click, and Control and left mouse button click, Control left mouse button click, Control left mouse button click, and we can call this eyes blink 10px, and then we go to our stroke path again and we increase that to 10, and we stroke that path and we get something here that we don't really want, so we can just get rid of this area and we can come in here and we can just kind of like mess with that a bit and then do Control A, Control X, and let's restroke our path and see if we get something better. That's still not what we want. So I'm using Control and left mouse button to kind of round this off really slightly, and let's stroke the path again, and that looks pretty good. Now this one's one way and this one's another way. It's up to you if you keep it. So if you look at this, we've got some blinking, and that looks pretty good. So next we're going to do the body. Alrighty, after a bit of a microphone adjustment, I think I was a little loud on the first part, we're going to do the body. So we're going to come down here and create a new layer group, and in that we'll create another layer group, and we'll do another one. And what we're going to do is we're going to create one for the arm and one for the body. So in here we're going to do a new layer, and we'll do another new layer. And we'll do this for the arms. Now whether you have the arms above or below the body, it's really up to you. Right, so we're going to start a new path, and let's start over here, down there, up there. Let's just slightly adjust it a little bit. And then we're going to go Shift and to start a new path and go over here and over here and over here. Now that looks like a little bit too far, so that's fine. Now I'm going to do Control and left mouse button and give him a little bit of a shoulder here. And the same here. And the reason why we have this bit up here is so we're going to have a bit of a neck. So when we tilt the head back and forth, we're going to come in here and click here, Shift, and then here, and left mouse button and click around here, and maybe move this guy down here, and left mouse button and click over here. And then we're going to want these guys to kind of go over here to touch the black. It looks like this one didn't work out so well, so we're just going to move these guys around a little bit. That looks kind of about what we want. Maybe this guy here will move him out. So we can call this body, 10 pixels. And we're going to go to what we think is the body lines. And we're going to stroke the path. We want that to be 10. And we'll stroke that. And let's get rid of here. And there we go. Now we want to color that in, and the way we're going to color that in is we're going to select our color. We'll do this one in red. Choose our paintbrush, get a small brush, and then basically paint between here and here. And it is over, so don't worry about that. We'll get through that in a second. And go here, and if you do Shift and left mouse button click, it will create a straight line. So now what I'm going to do is use the U key for the selection tool and select that and grow our selection. And we're going to grow that by 3. And we go to the next layer, do Shift B for our bucket tool and paint. Now we want to fix up this little area here. So we'll get rid of the select. We don't need that. Go back to our black and white. Go to our path tool, restroke our path. And as you can see, it got rid of those. So next we want to do our arm. So we'll just get rid of that for a second. And then we're going to want to do, what we can do is turn on this path so we can see where the other one was. And we can start here and say come to here, and then we can use the Control and left mouse button to bring that into here, and then just use the left mouse button to round these out. And I can click on this one and then go back and forth in here. And then over to here, and I can use the Control left mouse button to bring this into here. I can use these guys here to straighten them out. Control left mouse button to move this guy in, give me a bit more of a thumb. And then what we can do is we can go to our lines layer for our hand. What we can do is we can say this is the left hand on body, 10 pixels. And then what we can do is we can stroke the path. And you can see he's got some sort of evil looking fingers here. And we can fix that by Control and then left mouse button, and then just kind of get these little things here and then move them around until they're not so, until it round, creates a little bit of a round thing here. So we're going to use Control A and Control X and get rid of that. And we're going to restroke the path. And then it looks a little bit better. And we'll just come back here, and that looks pretty good. Now what we're going to want to do is we also need a piece that goes across here. So on the same path, we can use the Shift, left mouse button click, and do the next one, and then just move this guy over here and just let these guys overlap. And then come back over here and restroke the path. And let's see how that looks now. And as you can see, that looks pretty good. Now we got some sort of funky thing going on here. I'm not quite sure what that is. Sometimes GIMP doesn't completely do the path. You can move this button back or forth, but for now we're just going to leave it. So what we want to do is now we want to paint in the red. So let's go get our red color. We're going to get our brush. And we're just going to paint from here to here. And let's see how that works out with the other part. Not enough. So that's no good. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our paths. We're going to get these guys. We're going to extend them a little bit. Like that. And then we'll go back to black and white. On the same layer, we're going to restroke our paths. And then what we're going to have to do is we're going to come in here again and get this. And get the paintbrush and paint from here to here. And we got this bit in here, but we can fill that out. So what we can do is we can, actually what we can do is we can do this. We can put the red there and get the black and put it here. And on this lines layer, we're going to do, whoops, don't know what that is. Control A, Control X, get rid of everything. Go back to our path tool, restroke our path. Now it's all done in black. And we'll flip this over, get our paintbrush in here, paint over that, use the U to do the selection, grow the selection by 3, come down to our color layer, do Shift B for bucket fill, and paint it all in. Then we will remove our select, flip our colors, go back to our path tool, restroke our path. Oops, we're on the wrong line, we're on the wrong layer, restroke our path, and then that will close up those little lines overhead. Now we got a little bit of skin we want to fill in here. So we're going to go the U key, grow the path, find our color, Shift B for a bucket fill, go down to our color layer and fill that in. And probably want to do that for the neck as well. So we'll go up to our lines for our neck, use the U key, grow that, Shift B, go down to our color and bucket fill. And for this one, what we could do is maybe go with a darker color, and we can just use the paintbrush and we could fill this in here just to give it look like a bit of a darker color. So this is how we create a character. And now I'm going to show you on this guy how we save it out as separate parts. Well, I'm back again after another microphone adjustment. Seems a little louder, so I'm going to get this right eventually. Okay, so this is a character that I originally created, and let's just go through his different parts. He has a left arm, and a right arm, and a left arm on his body, and a right arm wave, and an arm behind the head. Now, all of these are paths that created that, as well as I have some paths for mouths here, and these are phonemes, and basically I cheated and I was lazy, so I've kind of used O, W, and another one you'll see in a minute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to save each part out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save the head out. So I don't need a mouth. So I'm just going to save with no eyes and no body. And I will export that. Now I'll export that as the head. And then I'm going to hide these, and I'm going to, let's see, here we go. There we go. Export the eyes open. Export the eyes closed. And just for fun, we'll export this mouth as, we have to do it as AE, and the phonemes have a special file names, so it would have to be like A, E, E, F, V, uppercase, lowercase, so we can go through that when we do Papagayo. So I'm just going to export one for now, and that's going to have to go into a _mouths folder if you are going to use my program to do the Papagayo to the list file for Synfig, and if you're going to do it manually, you can put the files anywhere you like. So we'll just put that out just to show you that how we're exporting, and we'll just export the body. Did I export the body? Let me check. I haven't exported the body, so we'll export the body without the arms. And we'll export the left arm. Export the right arm, and what you call them is really up to you. I could say right arm down. And then we have one behind the head. And then we have the right arm wave. And I'm going to go through and export out everything else. Okay, here we are. What I've done is I've exported out the body parts, and you can see I've got my mouths here. Now what I'm going to show you is these are the phonemes, the Papagayo file names, A, I, E, etc. And things like O, U, and WQ can be reused as the same, and MBP can also be used as rest, and it can also be used as etc. If you look down here, this is stuff you can get from somewhere on the web that shows, and this here is what Domix uses for his mouth-looking thing. So if you wanted to, use it for reference. So what I've done is I created a mouths directory, _mouths directory, and I put them in there. So you can either making your own mouths is really up to you. So next what we're going to do is we're going to do some audio with Audacity. We're in Audacity right now, and this is our script. Hey everybody, TonyVToons here. Just want to thank you for tuning into my channel. And we're going to quickly record that. And I'm not going to use this particular take. I've got it from another one which I've used for Papagayo in a later part of the tutorial. So we'll just show you how this is done. So I'm going to make sure my microphone is correct. And then I'm just going to hit this button here and say, hey everybody, TonyVToons here. I just want to thank you all for tuning into my channel. And say, hey everybody, TonyVToons here. I just want to thank you all for tuning into my channel. And as you can see, it still looks like I've got my microphone set way too high. So we'll just have to deal with that. Or maybe that's this here. So I can just close that out. Let's have another go at it. Hey, TonyVToons here. I just wanted to thank you all for tuning into my channel.
TonyVToons here. I just wanted to thank you all for tuning into my channel.
So that's not bad. So what you want to do is you want to export that. And in this case, I've already exported it as a voice MP3. But what you need to do is you need to export it as two files. One is a voice, as an MP3, and the second is a WAV file. And the reason for that is that Papagayo only accepts WAV files, and Synfig works much better with MP3 files. So when you save out your voice, you should save it as two files, which basically are going to sound exactly the same. We've got Papagayo up here, and this is our voiceover. We're going to drag that in, and we're going to get our script and paste that in too. And you want to make sure you get it right, because if you make any changes, let's see if I just show you, if I make a change here, then I make a change here, it all messes it all up. So you want to make sure you got your text right. And let's just drag this out a little bit. And I'm not going to go through a humongous amount of showing how to use it here. And I'm just going to, so you move these around to match up the voice. It's a little fiddly, this program.
Hey everybody. Everybody. Hey everybody. TonyVToons here.
So let's see if I can quickly get this done.
To my channel. I just want to thank you all for tuning into my channel.
And that's probably good enough. So what we're going to do is we're going to save it as two things. We're going to save it as a Papagayo file. So let's just call it test. We're also going to save it as an Animate studio file, and voice1.dat's fine. Now, voice1.dat, we're going to come in here, drag it over here, and we're going to change that to say FPS 24, because we were doing 24 frames per second over here. And then the next one is PNG. Don't think case matters. And then we're going to save that out as a .list file. And that's if we want to do it manually. I have another program that you can run that will do something for you. So we'll just get that program going. All right, here's a little program I wrote, and we can drag our Papagayo file into it. Where is it? I think it was Untitled, wasn't it? Test Papagayo, here we go. And what it's going to do is it's going to, first of all, it's going to check to make sure you got an underscore mouse directory, and it's going to make sure you have all of these files in there. If you don't have a file in there, it's going to tell you don't have it, and it's going to want you to put it in. It's also going to create another folder for showing what words are on what frame, so it'll help you animate a lot easier in Synfig. So we'll just click on the generate button. It's going to tell you that the words folder needs to be created. It's going to create it. And let's see what happens here. It created the words folder. And in here, it created a list folder. And this is the phonemes that this is a list of the phonemes matching the words and the lips that we drag into Synfig. And here is all the words. And it actually has a list file of when those words should show on the screen as well. So this is pretty helpful. You could, like we did at the beginning, we took the voice1.dat and we created a voice list file. So I mean, you can either do it manually or you can use my program if this is a Windows only program. So let's bring it to Synfig and let's do some animation. Okay, here we are in Synfig. Now Synfig is an open source program. It does have a lot of issues. I have a lot of issues with it. So, you know, if you want to get a paid program, I highly recommend Anime Studio Debut. It's only $50 US. I use that. It's a lot quicker. It's a lot less headaches. But anyways, what we're going to do is we're going to drag all of our parts of Tony Polly, in here. And we're going to have to make sure we line them up. So we want to move things down. We want the body below the head. We want the eyes up. And I find dragging is really doesn't work that well. So his arm wave is above his body. I think it's below his body. The body on self, this one goes below. Right. So now what we want to do is we want to go over and get our mouths and go up here and bring this list file in. And that's up here. And then we'll also maybe want to go up here and get our words and drag that in. Now, unfortunately, they're both named the same, which is probably not such a smart idea on my part, but we'll just have to deal with that. And what we'll do is we'll make these words a little bigger. Now, right off the bat, we can come over here and we can see that that's going to here. And we can even see that the mouth is opening like that. And that's pretty good. Now, what we want to do is we want to go through each one of the arms and the eyes, and we basically want to set the this alpha amount, which basically says whether it shows or doesn't, and we want to right mouse button click and change the interpolation to constant. And we're going to have to do that for everyone, and this is really, really tedious. Unfortunately, there's no quick way to say select them all and do that. If there is, please somebody tell me. The eyes open. So anything that doesn't have to happen to everything, only things that are going to appear and disappear. Oops. Make that a constant. Right. Another thing we're going to do is we're going to get the head, the eyes, and the mouths. Let's see, which one is this? Okay, yeah. So we get these guys, and we're going to group them. And we're going to take all this stuff and group them as well. And we're going to use this we're grouping them just for when we put bones in. Another thing we'll definitely want to do is we want to bring in our voice. So we'll bring that in here. And now we've got that. And, well, if we can play it, but it's not going to be in time.
TonyVToons here. I just want to thank you all for tuning into my channel.
As you can see, this tried to keep up and this tried to keep up, but it just can't do it. So one thing we could do is we could do a preview. And I always like doing 0.5 and 12 frames per second is good. Now, not unless you have a really kick-ass computer, is this going to be fast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this and come back when it's rendered. Okay, it's rendered, and here we go.
Hey everybody, TonyVToons here. I just want to thank you all for tuning into my channel.
Now the lip sync isn't all that great. Maybe I messed it up in Papagayo, but it's pretty good. So what we're going to do is come back here, and now we're going to pick, because he's got too many arms. Just going to basically get his left arm wave. I'm going to set that to 0. And behind the head, set that to 0. And unfortunately, there's no way to do like a Boolean thing, or if there is, I just cannot figure it out. Oh, sorry, don't want that one. There we go. So what we can do is we can click this, and you have to make sure you have this on, because if you try to animate and you haven't done that, you're going to be find out that it didn't work. So what we're going to do is we're going to click, go to here, and change this one to a 1, and pick his right arm down and change that to a 0. And now it looks like he's smiling, he's waving. And what we could do is we can, one of the things we probably will turn this off right now. We'll go back here because his eyes closed or open are there, so they're visible. So let's go like that. Now they're not visible. And let's go back to probably about here where we were the wave. Here we go. And we're going to blink his eyes. So we're going to come here and make these, we're going to make sure we turn on our animation. Let's see if that actually renders us something. Okay, that worked. We go to eyes closed, make that a 1. And we're going to move over 2 frames. Let's see, that was 21, 23. Now it gets a little bit easier because then we can use this and duplicate and it'll turn that off. Then we go here, duplicate, turn that on, and go over to, and then start duplicating these. And this part gets a little bit quicker, but it's still, there's probably better ways of doing it. And then move over to, and then get this guy, duplicate it, get this guy, duplicate it. And another thing we want to do is we want to put some bones in, because we're going to, with TonyVToons, he squashes himself. So what we're going to do is we're going to go add new layer, other, skeleton. And here it is, this little guy here. We're going to move that. We're going to get this brown thing, and we're going to move that up. And then we're going to right mouse button click on this guy and go create child bone. And we're going to move this down here. And I'm not really going to use this one, but this is what you would do. We're going to link it to the head, and I'll show you how you can move the head back and forth. Right, so we click the head, and then we're going to click on this thing to get it green, hold the control key down, click this bone, get that a green as well, light green, and then go link to bone. And if you don't get that right, it's going to be a big pain in the neck. So now what we can do is we can, we'll just first of all turn this off. We'll flip that like that. We'll say no. Actually, what we'll do is we'll go back to the beginning. Maybe that's my problem. Okay, that obviously did not work. So it was probably because I put that in the beginning. So I'm going to Control Z out until I get rid of my skeleton. So I'm going to have to get rid of my skeleton, delete that layer. And I just killed everything. Let's get rid of the skeleton. Okay. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's turn off editing. Obviously, I don't use this enough. Put our skeleton back. And then create a child bone. Bring that here. There. Okay, so let's link the body first to here. So we highlighted that, hold the control key down, get this guy, right mouse button click, link to bone, and let's see what happens when we move it. It tilts, and what TonyVToons does is he squashes, and that's what happens there. So that's exactly what we want. Now we're going to get the head. Click here, hold the control key down, click here, so they're both light green, right mouse button click, link to bone, I'm going to move this, and the head tilts. Now we're not going to do the head squishing, so we're going to go back into our animation mode, and right about here, I guess, we're going to have him squashed down. And we're going to squash him down. And why didn't I see that? Why didn't I see anything? I'm expecting to see something in here. there's something. So let's do a squash again. Yeah, there we go. We see this. And then we're going to move over a couple of frames. And then we're going to get this guy and we're going to bring him back, duplicate. And what I'm going to do is what's going to happen is this is going to be a slow squash. And I don't want that. I want to be a quick squash. So in other applications, you can say set breakpoint or set waypoint or something. You can't do that here, so you have to duplicate the beginning one. So we're going to have to duplicate this one, and it goes down and back up again. And that's exactly what we want. So let's do a quick preview. And we'll come back when it's done. Okay, it's rendered.
I just want to thank you all for tuning into my channel.
So that looks pretty good. I see you got a little bit of a jump there.
Hey everybody, PollyPToons here. I just want to thank you all for tuning into my channel.
And I think that's really good. Now another thing we could have done is we could have tilted him. But, you know, probably the body would have to be a bit longer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to render this out. And I render my stuff out as WMV files. If I can spell it. And I'm not the greatest, but I believe that you want the quality to be 10. And you want to come in here and change this to Windows Media Video 8. Now I have only had luck with MPEG 2 and Windows Media Video 8. And since I'm going to edit it in Windows Media Video Editor, whatever, I'm going to render it out that way. So it looks like the quality maximum is 9. So I'm going to render that out, and that's going to take quite a while. Even though it's not a very long video, it does take quite a while. So probably it's a good idea if you're going to do scenes, probably break the scenes up into smaller things, into smaller projects. Another thing I've forgotten to do, and I need to do that right now, which I always get killed on, is save this out. If you don't save it out, it doesn't know where to save it. So I'm going to save this out as test2, and it is in, oh, I don't want to make sure it's in the right directory. There we go. Now I want to render it. I might have to redo all this stuff again. Yep. And that's correct. So I'm going to render that out, and it's going to take a while. And what happens is you'll be able to see rendering, and when it's finished, it'll see rendered. So we'll come back after it's rendered, and we'll play the final video. Okay, it's rendered out, and let's play it. And it sounds a little silent. And that happens to be one of the problems with Synfig, is that it does not render the final project with the sound. So you're going to have to put that in post, and we'll have to do that in Windows Live Movie Maker. Unfortunately, like I say, Anime Studio Debut, you don't have this problem, and I'll probably have to do a why Anime Studio Debut is good for the $450 compared to Synfig. But hey, look, it's free, so you know, you just live with it. So let's drag this baby in here, and then let's drag a voice in, and looks like it needs to be moved over, and let's just play this. And maybe move it over a little bit more.
Hey everybody, PollyPToons here. I just want to thank you all for tuning into my channel.
And I'm not quite sure how to, I'm not a Windows Movie Maker person, but that's looks pretty good. And then what we could do is we could save the movie out. And I believe this works really fast. But another thing I find with Windows Movie Maker is it really clobbers the quality. So let's pop over to and let's play it.
Hey everybody, PollyPToons here. I just want to thank you all for tuning into my channel.
And from what I can see here, it's put a little bit more lines in here, and it's kind of clobbered the quality, but you know, you guys are working with Windows Movie Maker, it's free. I use Sony Vegas Studio. It works pretty good. So really, what we've done here is we've gone from, nothing to having animation, and we've done it all basically for free. And I think that's really good. So I'm probably done. Hey everybody, PolyPToons here. I just want to thank you all for tuning into my channel.